Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have a special guest, Garrett Gunderson, here joining us on the podcast. You guys are going to hear his story. We got some really cool stuff that we're going to talk about, tactics toward the end. So make sure that you stay toward the end so that you can get some of those tactics and everything. Before we dive into, right below in the show notes, many people want to build a personal brand like me and Garrett have done. We've been able to really help a big amount of people on impact. And so if you're wanting to know how to do that, down below in the show notes is a free gift I want to give you online of knowing how to build a media team, how do you scale with ads and AI, leverage those sort of things. Go down, check that out. My gift to you. Garrett, super glad you're on. Thank you for joining me. One of the questions that I ask everybody just out the gate here is, what is high performance? What does that look like to you? You've been in the world of finance and hustlers. How do you teach people around how to have a well balance in life with that high performance energy and drive that most entrepreneurs have?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think we figured out over time because high performance to me was just the grind in my 20s. And now, I mean, especially you just mentioned AI, like high performance is utilizing and leveraging tools that help you to be more productive and even how you grow people around you so you be more productive. So, like, if I want to have high performance, I'm always paying for someone to support me, right? Whether that's in my health, whether that's in my writing, whether that's in my speaking. I'm always looking for accountability so that I could get things done at a higher level and clarity. So if I'm not clear about what I want, then I guess there's no way to really have that happen. And I find like a lot of people know what they don't want, not necessarily what they do want. And so I like to have like 5 clear objectives. I like to have a really big vision. And even like in my marriage, I have a vision of being a premier romantic and an extraordinary husband. So that vision informs how I could be, at the highest level there. So vision, delegation, collaboration, these are all categories. If someone's just trying to do everything on their own, they're going to just like diminish. When I had some partners that died in a plane crash way back in the day, and I just tried to like relentlessly work to replace and do everything I could without them there, and eventually just hit to a point where there was diminishing returns. I was exhausted. I had nothing left to give. And so no matter how much effort someone gives, like it's really about making sure that you have good energy, you have the right life design, that you're investing in yourself, that you're taking care of your health. Like these are the things that are just so important when it comes to high performance, because if we don't have depth, which is really like being present, and harmony, which is being intentional, then what we're going to find is it's really hard to stay in that flow, and then we get stuck in this place of force, which is never high performance. It's always like it's temporary.
Right. So give the audience a little more context about your story and how you help serve people, because you're an author, you're a speaker, you've been in the industry, in the information space for a long time, educating thousands of people. Like, give some more context around what you're working on right now, and what you do to serve people.
We're really good at helping people keep a lot more of what they make, without having to cut back, and improve their cash flow and get financially independent where they have recurring revenue from assets to cover their expenses so they could swing for the fences in their vision. So we help them get their financial house in order, focus on growing their income, and then being able to keep more of what they make by saving on tax or interest or non-performing investment fees or inefficient insurance design. And then the most important thing is for them to grow themselves, like enjoy the quality of life along the way. So I have a program called Multiplier that's for entrepreneurs. I teach every single week on one of those topics, and then we have one-on-one support to help them get their taxes in order, or to help them analyze where they're at on that, or set up the right corporate structures, or restructure loans so that they can be more efficient. Like it's all things financial.
I want you to bring us back to the beginning of this origin story. I know you think in math. Was this always the beginning of, like, were you one of those like smart kids in school where it's like you thought in numbers, and now you help people with it? Like, to bring us back to the beginning of the early days of your business leading up to the success that you have now.
Well, I wanted to get good grades when I was in school so people didn't think I was dumb. I was just really worried. Like when I was in kindergarten, I didn't do an assignment once, which was memorize my address to get this art project back. And because I didn't memorize my address, the teacher threw it away. And so as a little kid, I thought, man, I'm stupid. And so I just really worked hard to prove that I wasn't stupid. whether that was
Yeah.
reading, whether that was getting tutored, whether that was getting good grades. And then my life really changed in a big way when I was 15 because I started my first business and I was detailing cars, cleaning them, washing them, waxing them. And I entered this business competition and I'd only made $700 of net income in my business, but I won $500 for taking third place for the Rural Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Well, the next year I took first place and I won for the, Small Business Administration 30 and under Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and I won the state entrepreneurship competition, which came with $5,000. And I thought, man, I want to invest this 5,000. I grew up in a small coal mining town. It seemed like a ton of money to me. But being a teenager, I had to have someone sign off as a custodian, which my mom wasn't really wanting me to go invest the money because she knew I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And but that was the beginning. That really got me fascinated with money and like how it works and how investments worked and how you could grow wealth and what wealth was and it was like just this adventure to me. And I just could read something on finance and really remember it. And
Mm.
like almost like, 10 years later, I could still remember what I'd read 10 years before. But there's other things when I read, I don't know what the hell it's talking about. And I'm confused. Like I've read books to try to help our son get really healthy, and it's written by some doctor. And I'm like, dude, I had to read like over and over. It's all case studies, it's all details. I have to look up what it's talking about half the time. But for whatever reason, money and math just made sense. It was a lot
Mm.
easier for me.
I think finding those strengths are really good. The fact that you found that pretty early is pretty awesome. Most of entrepreneurship journey is like a roller coaster and, ebbs and flows, and they fail more often than they succeed. And then when they hit it, it's like the what they call, which is like overnight success. And you're like, no, I've been grinding for decades and, and failures and stuff. Talk about like some of the beginning stages of this entrepreneurship journey that you had to deal with partnerships or understanding profitability. And were you married at that hustle or was it later? Like, how did you end up going about that success, being able to deal with all those components of life?
I started in finance June of 1998, and I was 19 years old, going to turn 20 in August that year. So I just was basically going to these events and realizing all they were teaching us was sales, like not really anything about tactics or the economy or all this kind of stuff. And they almost didn't need to because in 98, 99, the market was just going up. And so I was just putting people into mutual funds and selling them these risky insurance structures because they were all fueled by the stock market. And then the year 2000 hit, the market starts going down. And I'm like, wait, like it doesn't just always go up, you know? And that's when my real education began. That's when my journey really began because I had this professor at that time that managed $5 billion in municipal bond funds. He had he had retired at age 53 from that and became a professor. So he donated $250,000 to our class, and we were to invest that money in 5 different groups. And if we beat the benchmark, we got an A. If we didn't, it was kind of like a curve, like the second best group got a B, a C, or whatever if they didn't beat their whatever they were benchmarking against. So that was like this insight. And then I was like, look, I'm just going to travel somewhere every month because I was young and I could leverage my young age to be able to be in rooms that I wouldn't be able to get into later on, being that I had no wealth, but people love to pay it forward. So I had a little red memo pad and I would just go in and ask a ton of questions. And every single month flew somewhere, met with really bright financial minds, saw what a family office was, went to these advanced trainings. And I was just so excited about all that because I wasn't married at the time, so that was helpful because I got married at age 23. And at that point, um it was weird because we went from I was like this really romantic boyfriend and fiance, and then as soon as we got married I kind of became a miser because now all of a sudden it was my
Yeah, yeah.
responsibility to provide for us. And so I bought a townhome when I was 19 years old and rented it out to college roommates. And now when I was getting married, I was making 6 figures, which back then was something. And yet I was getting us to move into this really crappy apartment so that we could just save and scrimp and defer. And it was like I was so obsessed with savings that I didn't know the rules of prosperity at that point. And so that
Mhm.
first year was a little bit tough on my wife because she had to help me get over my miserly ways and not just save every dollar that we earned. And the thing is, it's not like you shrink your way to wealth. You can't really save yourself rich anyway. Even if I would have become a millionaire using that methodology, I would have never enjoyed the money. It would have just been stuck in a
Right.
bank account because the mindset was one of scarcity. But the nice thing is I learned about financial structures. I learned about taxes. I learned about all these things over those couple of years. It was 26 straight months flying somewhere to learn. And that gave me a really good foundation. And I didn't have a lot of pressure on how to produce because we lived in this little apartment. But at the same time, it wasn't until that I realized I was in scarcity and a miser that I really had this breakthrough and started to produce at a whole different level and have a much richer relationship with my wife.
It's definitely a thing where people get divorced over money and finances. And I can only imagine that you see that quite a bit with people coming in trying to figure out, hey, how do I be profitable, or the challenges within that, and then the relationship combination of that, where they have some and they just don't know how. Like, talk us through some of those challenges that you've seen people walk through and how you've kind of helped them through that.
A lot of people list a big reason for divorce is money. So let's break down what that really means. What happens is when people start to feel like they're just in survival, they stop dreaming about the future. They
Mm,
start fighting about the stress of what's going on and wishing their life was different. And so maybe when they're young and maybe when they're dating and before there was money issues, it's like, oh, here's what this life that we're going to build. Now all of a sudden it's all about fighting over, every last expense. And so the lack of dreaming of the future, lack of excitement of the future is what's really destroying the marriage even more than money. The money is just one small piece and culprit
yeah.
that is robbing them of their dreams because maybe they didn't have financial intelligence, or maybe they got swindled, or maybe they got in over their head and got over leveraged. I mean, there's a number of things that can happen. And especially with an entrepreneur, they might spend optimism. They might just have an amazing month and they think the next month's going to be better. So they just get over their, they over leverage, or they invest in things they know nothing about. And when it's lost, their spouse really feels like betrayed and they feel very concerned because a lot of times we don't really marry someone with the exact same money personality that we have. We usually have like the opposite. And then it's kind of like this lesson that we get to learn. And there's like part of the rules of attraction with that. So all of a sudden, maybe they want safety and security and you want freedom. And if that's not resolved, one feels like the gas, the other feels like the brakes, and that can create contention. And it really just requires a different conversation. Like I like to have conversations with my wife where I think about how she formed her money beliefs, what's important to her, like what does safety and stability look like? Is there an amount in an account that helps her feel that? Is there amount of cash flow that comes in that helps her feel that? Is there, like when you start to have those conversations, you can start to build a dream life together. But if you don't have the conversations, and I think they don't happen sometimes because the breadwinner sometimes doesn't want to create fear for the person that's asking for safety and stability. And so when things aren't going according to plan, they think the only solution is to work harder. And the harder they work, the more distant that starts to feel. And if it doesn't quite pay off, they're like, well, I didn't ask for this life of, you know, being alone and feeling isolated and you're not communicating with me. And they might have this imagination that it's much worse than it is just because we don't want to disappoint that person. We don't know how to have that conversation, or we learn that from our family and the way that they pass things down. There's a lot of families that just don't talk about money.
Yeah. I know something that's helped me in my marriage with that, because that's definitely the case over the years of being entrepreneurs, that we sit down at least like a weekly basis. We kind of have that business meeting that kind of goes over some of those things. Is there something that you always, certain questions or certain outlines that you want to help people with that mindset, or things that would help solve some of those issues?
Yeah, and when we were talking before, I'm like, I'll think of some good resources to hook people up with. This will be one of those first resources.
There you go.
If you put Nathan Newberry and Garrett Gunderson DM me on Instagram, I'm going to give you. I have an agenda that's a weekly agenda for my wife and I to have a meeting, because what I find is in business, I have meetings with partners, I have meetings with key relationships. Why not do that in my marriage? Because by having it carved out, it means that I know what to expect for that meeting. I'm bringing the right energy to that meeting, instead of like at the end of the day where I might be a little bit tired. And then she's like, hey, we need to talk about X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, I don't really have it in me. Well, now she knows that we have this weekly meeting. There's a time that she knows that she can get that information. And I mean, I think part of the reason why businesses aren't further along is they don't get enough feedback. And I think that the same thing can happen in our marriage. Like, get feedback. I ask my wife, how am I doing on a scale of 1 to 10 as a husband? it's less than 10, I'm saying, what would it take to get to a 10? And that's part of the meeting. Are there any big purchases coming up that we need to save for? We always have a trip on the book so that we're excited and looking forward to. So we have one coming up to New York and then Miami, for our anniversary. And so we can already start to experience that before it happens, because as soon as it's booked, it's like, awesome, that starts to occur in our life. So that meeting, we do that, but then there's also quarterly retreats that we do. And part of when people get this download, I've got like 3 different interviews where people have interviewed my wife and I, because I once spoke at Genius Network on marriage, even though I'm not a guy that speaks on that. And then my friend Jason Garnard at Mastermind Talks is like, oh, you need to come speak on marriage here too. And so all of a sudden I'm going there speaking on marriage, which, by the way, people are watching my wife to see, like, is he full of crap or is this like really who he is? And, but there's just certain rhythms that can happen, like having a vision for your marriage, having like those regular meetings, just those kind of things can make such a big difference. And even knowing your money persona, like your money persona and her money persona, that's instrumental to look and say, hey, do we have any places where it's just I need to understand what's important to you, and you can understand what's important to me. Then instead of like one being the gas, the other one being the brakes, it's more like one being the guardrails so the other person can accelerate, because there's enough information. You work as a team, it becomes a really beautiful thing.
Yeah. And I think people want that, and I think they just didn't know how to do that. And I think this resource down below in the show notes, and then definitely, DM Gary. I think that's going to be a really good
Yeah.
way to do that. What about in business? There's so many entrepreneurs and business owners listening to this, and they need that clarity. They want to hustle, but they are hustling in the wrong direction, or they're not financially clear. And you have like different methodologies, like Dave Ramsey that talks about like saving everything, and then you got Michael Michalowicz with the profit first. Like, what's some key things that you've seen that really kind of help people in that navigation as they're starting or even scaling their businesses?
So it's important to realize that businesses have an insatiable appetite. And so if you have a big vision, there's always a way to deploy cash in the business. you know and I think it's important over time to make sure that that business wealth turns into personal wealth, but not at the expense of growing the business. So I find that if someone doesn't take a salary as an entrepreneur, the business will find a way to use that money.
Mm,
And like, I remember one day I was in Chicago with one of my friends and we're walking, and I was talking about how I'd just been in New York and spoke at this event, and end up missing my flight because the person hosting's like, Garrett, these people want to know more about what you do. Can you stay after? And a bunch of people sign up for our programs. And that's not normally my role. We usually have salespeople for that. But I realized I didn't take any extra money for doing that. And so I started to just say, if I'm doing something in the business, so if I coach, if I get involved in sales, I want to be the most expensive person so the business doesn't rely on me for that. And if I do it, I can just set money aside so I'm capturing it.
mm,
$250,000 captured the next year just by doing things that, and by the way, now they started, as we grew as a team, people started to handle those things on their own. But the business owner loves the business so much that they're often just willing to do all this stuff, solve all the problems, but then the business doesn't mature because they get too involved. So I always look at, like, having a salary is important. Taking distributions is important. If you don't do that for too long, then you'll never do it because there's always an excuse, and you're artificially building the value of the business without taking care of the value of yourself. So that's the first thing. The second is, as you bring money over, automatically pay yourself first and then live off the rest. But just, you don't need to budget if you just simply differentiate your expenses. Eliminate destructive expenses, pay cash for lifestyle expenses, address your protective expenses, things like insurance and asset protection and legacy planning, and then always seek to increase productive expenses. And the best productive expenses are the skill sets that we individually develop, whether that's in communication, sales, whether that's marketing, whether that's in, speaking or writing or whatever that might be. What are the exponential skills? And one of those are financial intelligence. Far too many entrepreneurs skip financial intelligence, saying they don't have the time, and therefore they pay the price with their own money because
mm,
money slips through the cracks. 93% of business owners are tipping the government. Almost all of them, if they have any loans, they did not have negotiated the best interest rates because they don't either have the right credit score, the right cash flow reporting, the right connections, or even the right collateral that could reduce that. Or they have non-performing fees inside of their investments that are confiscating wealth, and they don't think it's a big deal, but it's a huge deal, because if someone's only getting 8% instead of 10%, that could be like, in 10 years, the difference between having 200 grand on the account or $1 million with that account. Oh, but it was only 2%, but it's compounded, right? So that's important. And even making sure we've transferred risk, because we're all in store for financial surprises. It's just that 90+% of the time, it doesn't have to derail or destroy us if we address our protective expenses. So you pay yourself first, and then you just once a week or once every other week say, is there destructive expenses to eliminate? Are there, lifestyle ones that I'm paying cash for that are worth it? Should I go more in on those? What are the protective ones? So I've addressed that. And then fourth, the productive ones. Where should I actually increase instead of decrease? Because most people in budgetary mindsets think it's all about elimination, but you don't shrink your way to wealth. Wealth is a game of expansion, of value creation, of solving problems and serving others, right? So that was a pretty long answer, but
I
the
love it.
reality is, we've got to be more intelligent with our money.
Uh, I've heard Alex Ramosi talk about it's like when he started looking at his finances each day, he got more clarity on like how to grow it. And I try to multiply that too with, things that I think about, or even when I have my team help me with it, I look at the two leading lagging indicators, which is like, you know, uh, how many leads do I have? And then as well as, what's the revenue that we're making, what's the expenses, right? So what are some things that you've seen people that made the mental shift or the clarity of it? Is it just reviewing it? Is it examining? Is it how often? What's kind of the way that you really kind of approach the people that have success? Where the habits that they build around the healthy view of money and the exponential growth of it?
Yeah, I mean, when there's no awareness, there's no chance for change. And there's a lot of money blocks and money blind spots. So, one of the simple things I start with for most people is a financial health assessment. We go through everything from their car insurance, homeowners, liability, disability, medical, life, their wills, their trusts, their liquidity. So we start with that safety and security. Then it's the money and investing, everything from their credit score to their taxes to their corporate structure to where they invest to what the fees are to how they protect the downside. Once they have that awareness, they can now make shifts and say, well, where am I not set? And what are the priorities to get set? And so you don't have to know all these things, but you do have to have a team that can support you so that you're in the driver's seat and understanding what you're doing. Far too many people relegate instead of delegate. Relegate is they hand it off and they ignore it and hope for the best.
Right.
Delegate is like, hey, yeah, I want to have an understanding of what I'm doing and I want to have a strategy and I want to be part of that strategy, but I'm okay with you implementing it in your area of expertise. And so a lot of the problem that people have is they have a broken team, just not enough of a team. We need something that's cohesive, that's connected, that's comprehensive. And then what happens if you have those people? You've got to build a plan. So it begins with perspective. If someone's in scarcity, no amount of luck or saving or discipline will save them. They're going to find a way to destroy that wealth. The second thing is if your perspective is abundant, then it's about purpose. Where are you going to invest or where are you not going to invest? I call this investor DNA. Figure out your values, your competencies, and what drives you, what you're interested in, and then focus on growing your investments there. Become a better investor. So narrow and get really focused and then eliminate all the distractions. Most opportunities are actually distractions disguised as opportunities. So if you know your investor DNA, you become a better investor. That's get more clear with your purpose. Then you build your financial plan. And that financial plan is when you have that financial health assessment, having awareness, then it's about having the right professionals to implement that plan. And then finally, products last. Most people just have products that they then buy through a professional, or they have a professional that sells them a product. And if they don't have a plan, someone else will sell them a plan. If they don't have a purpose, like part of the purpose I always look at is I want people to be financially fit. I want them to have a financial foundation. I want them to be financially independent, cash flow from assets to cover their expenses. And when that recurring revenue comes in, they can swing for the fences in everything they do. And then financially free, that's a state of mind or a state of being or perspective where they put value first, where money's not the primary reason or excuse they would do or not do something. So independent, fit, and free, when they're in that situation, they're going to be so much more empowered. They're going to have so much more clarity. They're going to have so much more excitement. And here's the key: to design a life you don't want to retire from, to enjoy the process along the way, to start to offload the things that you hate because someone else actually loves to do them. So you do more of the things that you're very best at. And that there's a skill set that you got to find to get there because, when you don't have the money, you might have to put a little bit more effort in. But some people get so addicted to holding on to their money that they never offload that, they never delegate, and they get into a cheapskate mindset. So yeah, they're saving money at the expense of production. right? So we got to focus on value first and price second or third instead of price and price alone.
That's so good, man. I hope people caught that. I know you're passionate about it. You're about to get out of your seat. Like you see
Yeah.
the hole in people's life with their business and their life, and they don't have a plan. They wing it, and they need to get crystal clear on that. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. You've built a personal brand in this momentum and this focus with this passion that you have online. And I teach a lot about the importance of building a personal brand and how people leverage it. But how did you do it? Like I know you talked about for 2 years you flew around making partnerships. Has that been a big component of your growth, or where did you see kind of the leverage point of being on social media, the leverage on YouTube, and writing books and speaking? What was that path like, and what's been the most helpful?
One of the biggest mistakes I made was hiding behind a company. I built a company and I thought, well, I don't want to build my personal brand. I'm going to build the company and that brand. But the thing is, people don't really do business with companies, they do business with people. And so my personal brand is something that will be with me till the day I die. And so hiding behind that kind of cost me. We had hundreds of thousands of people in our database, but that's not public facing, that's very private. So I've had this shift in thinking where I was like, hey, I used to vilify social media. Like, oh, it's so bad for people and there's death scrolling. Like I watch the documentaries and be like, I don't want my kids on it. And so I took far too long to finally embrace it and say it's here to stay. It's a completely useful tool for people that utilize it right. It can be destructive for others, but why don't I put good into it?
Yeah.
And I looked at social media as a way that I could add service and value, even if I've never met someone. And it's a way for me to contribute without having to get paid or have a transaction. I could just give. And once I had that shift, I'm now building a media team, a creative director that I just brought on, a video director, a writing director. We have a process manager, and we have someone that captures the video and does a lot of the editing. So I want to really go all in on this. Because if I don't, then I have this content that never impacts as many people. So yeah, we've sold hundreds of thousands of copies of what the Rockefellers do. And that's the thing that's built my brand more than anything is my books. But now when I combine books, which I've been kind of a pro with, have New York Times bestsellers, Wall Street Journal bestsellers, and I've been amateur on video, yet I'm really good on stage. So I'm like, great, I'm going to take my ability from stage. I'm going to take these books and we're going to really go all in on social media to just have so much more reach and reputation, because it's not just what you know, it's who knows you. And when you combine actually adding tremendous value and having more people know you, I just had one of my friends come and speak to my inner circle last week. And he 2.5 years ago, he decided to get on Instagram, and now he's at almost 890,000, followers. And now he's like, yeah, I have to turn the things down all the time. People want me on podcasts. They want me on stage. He's like, there's so much more opportunity because I can serve them. And so, yeah, personal brand, if you're wondering whether you should go all in on it, if you have a message to share that you really feel connected to and you want to bring that to the world, like I just made the mistake of waiting for far too long. And I'm glad that I'm finally embracing it and moving forward with it and, excited to see what comes of it.
Yeah. What's the challenge with right now with building a media team? I know so many times people struggle with delegation, or they think they need to be the only person that in their DMs. Like, what's been the exponential growth that you've seen when you started going that direction and building that?
My video director is so phenomenal. He did this video that's on the opening of my comedy special on Amazon Prime. The comedy special is called The American Ream. And that first kind of money rap video, he did it. And it's so good. And we did this meeting crashers video back in the day where I would come and crash meetings and it would help people get more money. And it was just a short video. And we got millions of views on it, but we got thousands upon thousands of leads from it. So I've taken that great quality of he can really put his brain to it. And my writer has been writing for me for 12 years. But now we just did our first video on YouTube where we tested the titles. We ran ads to see what the biggest click through rate was. And we're testing different formats so that what's the best version of how we can put this content out there. We're just getting so much more intentional. And the biggest challenge I have is my creative director is so brilliant and talented that, it's going to take time before he can really dedicate full time to me. But we just had our second meeting this week as a team with 5 of us. And now what I look at is I want to show up and be the best version of myself. I need that feedback. I need that expertise. I want to put that extra effort into it and be a pro. And that's what I did with my comedy special. I mean, we had an amazing crew and got it on Amazon Prime. I didn't do it by myself. And so it's really about collaboration. It's about testing, and it's about this dedication to it that I would consistently do it, day in and day out and week in and week out. And what am I willing to do and what am I not willing to do? And what does my brand look like on this? And how do I express that in a way that I would still be passionate about it 10 years from now? And it's really authentically who I am. And so as time goes on, you're going to see more humor and using entertainment to educate, because that just sounds fun. That just sounds exciting to me.
Exactly. Yeah. How about AI? How much of what you're doing now is in, really incorporating a lot of the AI things that you're doing or building? How much of that are you looking at and doing and growing in?
Like the hardest things to get done in finance are someone building their family constitution, which is a document that begins their trust in their own words, sharing their philosophies, sharing their principles, sharing their greatest lessons. So they're signposts for future generations. And it took me a long time to write my 52-page document that's now down to 38 pages. So I've made it more succinct. It took, dedicated time, and I'm a writer, and it was hard to get done. Now we have an AI tool where someone can get the first version done within an hour, and it's phenomenal. The prompt interviews them, or they want a family crest, and the AI tool can help them get there. Or we're using AI tools to analyze a lot of their finances that normally, if I read a trust, it might take me an hour. I can get everything done in 5 minutes because I could just have it show me what the highlights are of where the normal issues might be. So I could point that out with having to go through the most boring document ever. So we're using other AI tools where when people want to hire their kids, so they can create ideas of what to hire them for, and then that's a tax deduction to them. But now they have real work that they're finding for their kids. It's not just organizing and mowing a lawn or something that's not developing real skill sets. So we're consistently using AI to make it more effective and efficient for the people that we serve. We're testing AI bookkeeping right now, where I just consistently look at AI as, how well can I get to the place where when I'm with someone, I'm really with them, not caught
Mhm.
up in the transactional busy work that's required but uninspiring. And once that's handled, now I get to be in a human moment with someone. What do they really want? Those vulnerable moments where we're talking about legacy or their kids or their fears or their vision. And it's like, yeah, we're definitely, integrating more and more AI as time goes on. What AI has been pretty garbage in is early on when I'd ask it financial questions, and it's gotten a lot better. So I used to do Garrett versus AI videos because it was just kind of like homogenized, lowest common denominator advice. But now I might be writing something, and what it can do for research for me, so that I don't have to spend, in the past, I had like full-time people that were doing that kind of stuff when I was writing books. I can now get to where the articles were, where the research is, so much faster. And the craziest thing happened the other day where I was just, writing a master class, and we did this Rockefeller method master class. And I said, hey, how could I convey in Garrett Gunderson's voice why it would make sense to get these AI tools for the legacy stuff versus trying to do it on your own? And I just copied and pasted it, forgot to go back and revise it, read it, and 46% of people decided to upgrade to the mastery stuff based upon what AI
Wild.
wrote that wasn't even
Wild.
me writing. So I mean, it's getting better and better, and I just am excited that the people that embrace it and utilize it, they can just have more time doing the things that they really enjoy doing instead of the things that there have to be done. But
Mhm.
I want people to be careful not to replace the joy with AI. Like someone once said to me, hey man, have you had AI write any jokes? I'm like, no man, that's the process I love. I love writing the joke. Why would I take that away? But research, that's not always my favorite thing to do. I love what AI can do there. And we have a licensing program where we license some of my content to financial advisors. And so we interview them, and then in the interview, that's what creates the forward for their version of one of my books. And then we issue Claude, so we can get that forward done in 30 minutes, 20 minutes interview, 10 minutes using Claude, and just a few revisions. And they're like, dude, that's so good. And it's like, yeah. So we're now with our licensees offering like fractionalized service to get their newsletters and stuff done off my content. But with AI, we're 10 times more effective, 10 times more efficient, keeping the price down substantially for them, and they're getting much better results. So again, another long answer because I like the question.
What's something that you're working on now that you feel like is going to be the biggest impact for, the clients you serve now and everything you're doing?
There's two things that are really, I think, have exponential opportunity for impact. One is the book What Would the Rockefellers Do is my most popular book, and I'm licensing uh, ways for people to serve their clients more effectively. I think 9 out of 10 people selling insurance are selling it wrong, and that's really harmful to the client. And the book What Would the Rockefellers Do talks about how to properly structure it and optimally fund it. And so now I'm licensing that to people that go through a certification, and then they get access to like a Go High Level account with every article I've ever written. I teach them every month how they can get more clients, how they can serve their clients better, and there's just all these resources. But now they have a machine that when someone reads the book, they click a QR code, it schedules with them, not with me. And they're attached to it. So I think that that's going to help What Would the Rockefellers Do be one of the most impactful financial books of all time, because that book makes legacy accessible and available to the masses, where most people think that's reserved for the ultra wealthy. And it's very pragmatic of the two things that have to be done to initiate a legacy. So it's not just a philosophical book. And because these people are really good one-on-one with clients but not as good one-to-many, if I get a licensee, that's representing thousands of more books in people's hands. So if I have 250 licensees, this book just becomes so much more widespread. That excites me. And then I have this entrepreneurial community multiplier. I want to have 100,000 people in it before I die and be the most influential financial teacher for entrepreneurs, because it's a different game that entrepreneurs play. And if they understand finance, what they get is permission to succeed, and they don't feel the guilt or shame. They don't have a retirement plan, or that they're not, just all stuck in the stock market. Like, I want to give them the right advice, because it means they're going to save tax, keep more of what they make, invest back into their business, improve their, service and impact that they make, and enjoy their quality of life along the way. Those two things, as you could tell, I'm pretty fired up about.
Love that, man. How can people find you and connect with you further?
Yeah, so Garrett B. Gunderson on Instagram, or Garrett.live in a browser will take them to my YouTube channel, or it's just Garrett Gunderson TV on YouTube. I'm putting out a video every week that's a little bit longer form there. I'm putting out a couple of daily nuggets on Instagram. I'm pretty new to the, really being intentional with Instagram, but I'm excited about where we're headed with that. And we just keep evolving on the YouTube side, that it's really like a fit for my brand. And I think it's really helpful for people if they see those videos. And GarrettGunderson.com is my website, and they can go see my comedy special at Amazon Prime, or if you DM, I'll even throw in a good audiobook if they go, and when they DM me, we'll give them the marriage resources and the audiobook of one of my financial books.
I'll go put those things down in the link. Go connect with him. Garrett's a
Awesome.
great guy, full of wisdom and some clarity on that. So go check that out. Again, if you haven't liked and subscribe, go check that and click that button, smash it. That resource down in the below, also a helpful way. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.